Pulp MX Network production.
Bringing you a cheeky Brit and an American YouTube racing sensation weekly. It's the LVK More Than Moto podcast with your hosts, Phillips and Kellen Brauer.
Welcome back, everyone, to another Leatt LVK More Than Moto podcast. I'm Kellen Brauer, joined by Phillips. It is Wednesday now, after the 2025 Motocross of Nations. Busy weekend for our guy, Big Lou. A lot of hanging out, a lot of chatting, a lot of seeing people that you haven't seen in a while, and it sounds like you had a fantastic time. So first off, the vibes must be super high for you today.
Not today, Kellen. It's Wednesday. We're low, if anything. The weekend's gone, never to return.
I just thought you'd still be living off the high of everything. I mean, it was incredible for you.
No, it does a lot, Kellen. The Nations and going to the MXGP paddock does a lot for me. Some highs which only bring the emotions up, the questions up, the feelings up. It's a lot of soul searching going on this week.
I listened to your review pod that you put up on Vital. It's also on this Pulp channel now. That was awesome. Honestly, I think fan feedback has been pretty positive from that so far too, of seeing like the mashup of you guys and how that interaction was, and then the exclusivity of everything as well. Very exclusive with the podcasting. So that was cool.
Yeah, my one regret from that is I didn't make it clear how fucking ruined all of us were. I had just done post-race interviews for 2 hours, so hadn't even looked at the results, had been doing post-race interviews since the last lap of the last moto. Came back to the press room, they were all sat there like, we need to do this. So I went straight into that chair, hadn't eaten, hadn't drunk, that's why I was necking a monster, because I just needed something, and I was ruined. Absolutely ruined, and as were they. So, almost, in one way, I'm stoked, because in my head I'm like, fuck, if we can somehow get that panel of 4 people doing more together, fuck, that'd be brilliant. And in the other side, I'm like, people liked it, and I thought it was good, but we were all delirious, pushed for time, hadn't really had time to even think about what we were talking about or what insights there were. So I'm like thinking, fuck, that could be a lot better if we actually had a better scenario for it. So one for the future.
I will say, though, on the flip side to that is, because of the looseness of it, if that's what you want to call it, because everyone's so tired, I feel like you guys were spewing out information that maybe you otherwise wouldn't have, or I don't know, like I just felt like there was a lot of in-depth analysis beyond just the race. Like you guys really went into detail about the conversations you had. Some private conversations apparently also
that
coming
was really
out
funny.
as well.
But easily, the highlights from the podcast were the Josh Hill thing, funny. Me saying, so Sua told me in a private conversation, really funny, and Wheeler's laminate thing.
Yeah.
Those 3 moments were standouts for me.
Yeah, no, it was excellent, and it was cool to see everything from the weekend too, because you guys did your mashup or like, you know, you did your review pod Friday and Saturday, and you kind of, I don't know, like as you said, it would be awesome if there was the more norm that we had on weekends to be able to do stuff like that, because I think it gives so much more analysis and in-depth to the fans about what's actually going on all weekend long than just, hey, a race happened and let's talk about it.
Yeah, I would actually, I am thinking more and more, it was discussed in that review pod, I may try and do a Friday night thing. Because like you'll remember, I meant to say this to Stephen Weege on text. Back before we were media, remember Steve Weege and JT used to do the show between practice and the night show?
Yeah.
Like 2014, I think it was. I used to live for that. That was amazing. So I'm thinking a Friday night show where we recap press day. The conversations, the weather, the vibe, like just a bit of a general convo. I think that'd be quite good. I need to speak to Steve about it. I mean, between Steve, I'm at every race, but between you, Steve, Weege is always too busy, and so is JT. I guess it would be a Lewis, Kellen, and Steve thing. I don't know.
Plus guests, I don't know. Like I feel like every once in a while we'll be able to get someone that's either still there or just doesn't have anywhere else to be, so they'll come around and do it too. Like I do think that there's a lot of possibilities because we're all just at the track on Friday anyway. So what's the difference?
Yeah, like I think there's something about the coverage from at the race. You know, like I listened to Adam Wheeler's Paddock Pass podcast, Patreon notes shows, and it does feel a little bit like more immersive when you know they're recording it from the venue. And you like, it's obviously not as polished and doesn't sound maybe as good, and it's a bit noisy in the background. But in a way, I like that because you really feel like you're in it. I don't know.
No, you're 100% right, because that's core fans, the ones that are watching on the weekend. That's the analysis that they want. That's, in a way, what they want out of the people that are on TV too. You know, like they want that more like in-depth, beyond just, hey, you know, that was a good pass kind of analysis. Like I spoke to these people. This is what they all said from the pit lane and all that. So no, it was excellent. And I think you did a really good job all weekend. You have your own vital thread. So congratulations.
Yeah, which fucking went terribly.
Why?
Because it's just fucking, anytime someone says something nice, everyone has to pile on and like counteract it. I would give myself a solid B- or C+. Heading into the weekend, I would have given myself a B, an A-, B+, and then I failed a bit over the weekend. Some audio problems, definitely on Friday, tried to do way too much. Like I was so focused on doing the best job possible and absolutely killing it that I overexerted myself like crazy. I did 4 different podcasts on Friday, all at overlapping times, just running from fucking tent to tent, going, oh, hi, and I'm just plugging everything in and be like, that looks good, we gotta go. Like, I wish I'd just like backed it off a little bit. Like, there's so much fucking more to do. It's so crazy how much more there is to do. But it also looked like this would almost be one of my topics, but people do care about the MXGP stories. And like, for instance, Paul Jonas, I interviewed him on press day. He said that he thought it was the first interview he'd done all year. And I shit you not, Kellen. Well, first of all, Paul said his DMs blew up. The amount of fans that stopped me at the track on Saturday and said, I have no idea who that guy is, but that interview was awesome and I'm going to cheer for him now. Like, crazy that these riders are so underutilized and you can take their profiles so much further. And people do care. Like, even on a lower scale, I interviewed Conrad Muse on Sunday night, kind of like, oh yeah, he's here. No one's really going to care. And it's by far the podcast that I've had the most feedback on. Like, people do care about stories far beyond Chase Sexton and Jet Lawrence. We just need to do a better job of giving it to them or realizing that.
Well, I mean, I think as you proved it with concept of what you did with Vice, is that there is so much more going on in the world of moto than in the U.S. And while what's going on in the U.S. is awesome, it's arguably oversaturated at this point. There are so many people covering the races here and getting insights and getting interviews and stuff. And, you know, I think that you and I both feel that we do a good job, but you can do so much more of just like being the one that's actually getting the information from the GP guys, or if you went to the British Championship, you'd be one of the only ones. You know, there's a couple, but it's just awesome that, or I think that you could do a lot more from a world scale of moto. And unfortunately, it's tough with travel and everything like that, but you've done a good job of it. Still keeping people connected, still having these relationships, having the MXGP podcast, so that at the end of the day, these people do actually have a name, a voice of some kind, and then you just get to show it when it comes to Nations because they're all there.
Yeah, the Nations, someone said to me, oh, you feel like, do you reckon, how, like, you nervous for the Nations or working it? And I was like, no, I shouldn't be. Like, I'm the only person here who knows both sides. This is a weekend where it works out for me. But yeah, like, even post-race interviews, I did try to avoid the American-based riders because, again, as you said, how many times have we heard from them this year? Like, it's just relentless. I tried to find Sewer and Caroli and Jonas and DeWolf and Everts and Rasmus and all of these people because I was like, there's so much more to get out of this than just talking to Jet for the 1700th time or talking to Eli about a scoop once again, you know? Like, it's a bit much. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I think the ideal thing for me, I would do all 17 supercrosses or pretty much all of the supercrosses. Start outdoors and then really mix in a lot of GPs in the second half. And I think that's where you'd get the most. And like the first round of GPs, I'd probably try and mix that in. But I think if you could mix that in, you'd have the ultimate website. Yeah,
no, you would, because you'd be getting everything. Not everything. Obviously, you'd miss a couple of the, you know, national series across the world that are still pretty popular. But you'd be getting a large portion of what people are actually looking for, which I think would be excellent. So, but anyway, we've been riffing about the media far too much on this podcast. I feel like let's get into the brunt of the nations. Obviously, really cool vibe, I feel like, from the Motocross of Nations being back in the USA. I know that you and Wheeler thought maybe it's a little bit subdued, and it did seem to lack the amplitude on TV that Redbud provided. But I just assumed that it was because it's more spread out at Ironman, and just there's a lot more spaces and nooks and crannies on the track that people can go stand and watch. But either way, it did look cool. Let's get into the surprises of nations, though. We see Australia wins. We see USA get second. We kind of all theorized that the entire time. But France gets on the box. Obviously, Netherlands with Koldenhoff goes way back. But I don't think that you could say that was a surprise. It's just unfortunate. What to you is the biggest standout from 2025 MXON?
Well, to tie it into what you said before that, I think my biggest standout is how much Ironman didn't work for a nations to a degree. And I actually struggle to say that because in a way it worked. In some elements, it works exceptionally well. And in other elements, it really didn't. Ways it worked well, the parade on Friday redefined our expectation of what the parade can be and has therefore set a benchmark for every single nations from this point on. And I'll be curious to see if they try to do an in-town parade in Ernée, for instance. I think it might work. Like, it's a little town, but I feel like they could shut it down and take control quite easily. So in ways like that, Ironman became the point of definition. But in other ways, arguably everything that happened Saturday and Sunday, it did just lack something. That X factor, the it factor, the special sauce. And I don't know what that was. And I was thinking about it this morning because I was writing about it. And I think this is the first time since Kegums that we've had this feeling. And also, with the exception of, obviously, Redbud and Majora, although Majora's a bit questionable, it was after Kegums that we went into the rotation of venues that will definitely work. This is arguably the first time that we've really strayed from that. Again, Redbud you could say, but Redbud's Redbud, so almost guaranteed to work. And I think this is arguably underlined why In Front play it the way that they do, because Ernée and Majora and Matterley and these venues do work as guaranteed hits, and we've got off script with Ironman, which doesn't have the same prestige or recognition, and it didn't quite work. So I think I've come around to In Front's way of thinking a little bit.
I'll hit back on that because I don't want to go to this. We go to the same 3 or 4 tracks all the time. Obviously, that would suck. But like, I think the problem with Ironman really is that a lot of the track is infield area, which, you know, fans can't get to and all this stuff like that. And that does happen. Matterley, you can't get in the infield anywhere there. Ernée, obviously, kind of the same thing. But I think the way that the audience surrounds those tracks makes it much more of an atmosphere, whereas Ironman, there is an infield, there's also an outside, but half the track is almost non-accessible to fans. Now, fans were standing in like the wooded section, but every time that they went to the wooded section, it felt like, this could be, I don't even know, a GNCC race almost, because there's just not a lot going back there. There's not a lot of air horns. There's not, chaos. And really only, I guess, when you went down that back straightaway and then to the switchbacks before the finish, did it feel like fans are hanging over the fence and like really giving more oomph to the atmosphere, as mentioned. So I don't know how you change that at Ironman, but I think that's really its biggest problem, that loses the atmosphere of it, because it looks like it's just a really barren racetrack, except for like a couple sections on TV.
Yeah, not all of the sections, but I did feel like the fans were exceptionally far from the track. The distance between the fence and the track seemed really far in some places. And I don't know why that was. Like, it felt much bigger than the norm. I think the biggest problem with Ironman is that it's not a good track for 450s versus 250s. And I think that has to be top of the priority list from now on. And if the layout is in doubt, prep it in a way that allows technique to shine and 250s to kind of make the difference. Credit to Rasmus Jorgensen, because he rung me after the National and he said, yeah, this isn't going to be a good nation for the 250s. He's like, yep, from what I saw on TV, 250s aren't going to be able to compete. It's going to be really hard to make a difference, and I don't think it's going to happen. And it played out that way exactly. So, I think that needs to be and will be my number one consideration with this event moving forward and new venues. Although you would say that Ernay should be difficult for the 250s because of the hills and everything, but I guess it's so tight that being on a little nimbler 250 can be advantageous in other areas of the track, so I don't know. But finally on this, we are going off script quite a lot now because 26 Ernay, okay. 27 Assen, so that's like almost a new venue because we've not been there in so long. 28, an undisclosed US location, maybe it's different. 29, there's murmurs of Australia or something more extravagant. 2034, Keggums. So we are kind of going off the beaten path of the last decade a little bit.
Yeah, we are, and I hope that all these work because I just don't want to get stuck in the same rotation of 4 or 5 tracks. Like it's getting, I don't want to say boring, but monotonous, repetitive, if that's what you want to use the word for it. But no, that's cool. Like Australia would be awesome for sure.
I'll tell you this, actually, speaking of Australia, I've been meaning to say this all week on every single podcast. Hunter said to me in Las Vegas that, I can't even remember why it came up or what the context to the conversation was, but something along the lines of, I think the Nations needs a little bit of bad weather just to add another layer to the event. And I wonder if that was a little bit of it. Like, the weather was great. It was perfect. It was brilliant. But I wonder if it was almost too perfect and it took away some intrigue and some doubt and some questions from bench racing, and that played a role. The Hunter's words have rung in my mind ever since because it does actually make a lot of sense.
Yeah, it does. And also, like, the atmosphere of it changes a little bit too, right? Like, I don't know. I feel like Nations, when there's cloud cover and it looks hazy and then the smoke bombs are going off and half the track is clouds and half the track is smoke, and it has a whole different aesthetic to it as well versus just it looked like a normal sunny national day, which is, yeah, it's cool. Like, obviously it sucks when we have bad weather, but it does take a little bit of the mystique away. And also when it does rain, as we've seen, it throws a lot of curveballs into what the results could be, how it'll go. Redbud, when it's perfect on Saturday and raining Sunday morning, everyone's like, okay, well, so those results yesterday don't mean a thing now because it could be completely different, and it kind of turned out to be that way. So maybe just it needs to have one wrench thrown in the plans a little bit, one thing that changes it up from Saturday to Sunday, because I feel like what we saw Saturday sort of turned into what we saw Sunday.
Yeah, the way the conditions were, it was just very easy to predict what was going to happen. And ultimately, it was probably one of the more predictable Nations. Most likely just because Jet and Hunter are that good, I guess. But there are other ways that you could have maybe hindered or doubted the Lawrence brothers, but none of those factors arose at Ironman. So here we are.
Yeah. All right. Well, this wasn't into my topic about surprises. We can maybe push that for a minute. I'll tell you guys about Leatt real quick, though. Leatt, obviously, awesome protection for your neck, for your anything. You want to wear some knee braces, you want to wear some back coverage, you want to wear their helmet. Their helmets are awesome, and they're always updating them and making them better for you guys to wear. Saw a couple of the Leatt athletes on the track at the Motocross of Nations. Their kits were awesome. Really cool to see Leatt get behind that and make a push as well to represent the many people that represented their countries at the Motocross of Nations. So check out Leatt.com for all that they have to offer, and we thank them, as always, for backing the show. All right, here is the Team USA topic that I want to get into because people have been starting to beat it down a little bit. Okay, yeah, RJ, J. Coop, they rose to the occasion. They tried their best. It didn't work out. They still end up second overall. How much different, if at all, does the result sheet look with Sexton and Deegan there, in your opinion? Massively? Or do we still look at P2 for Team USA?
Well, we're probably still looking at P2. No, because Webster would have done the same results. Oh, but then if it depends on how much of a disadvantage of a 250s were actually at and whether Deegan could have made the difference. Because if Webster had only got back to 13th, but Deegan was 4th, there's your win. It's right there. And then if Chase had been right on Hunter, I mean, let's not forget, Chase has beaten Hunter outdoors a lot. So it's very realistic to think that, in fact, the last moto would have been Chase, Hunter, Eli, Jet. So then that would have changed the playing field completely. I don't think you can say with certainty that USA would have won, but I definitely think it would have been a tougher win for Australia, and I think Australia's point total would have been higher because the USA would have taken some of their best scores from them.
Okay, so in your opinion, you think so? Chase was going to go in MXGP. Let's go back to race 1. He would have been Jet, Kunin, Geyser, Fevra. Do you think he beats Kunin that moto? Does he beat like where is he slot? Third?
Yeah, either ahead of Kunin or maybe behind. Second or third.
Okay. Second or third, and then race 3, you think about the same. Obviously, Jet goes down, so maybe could have been better, could have won the race, whatever. But let's say like a 3-3 day is minimum.
Oh no, I think the last moto you have to say Chase would have won or got second, purely on the fact that he's beaten Hunter and Eli a lot outdoors now recently. So I think you have to say that he would have been first or second in that moto, all being well. Which with Chase, you never quite know how things are going to go, but.
My only hit back on that would be that his starts haven't been as solid as basically everyone that started in the front of that race. Joe whole shots, Hunter gets in the lead quickly. I think it would have taken him too long to get there. But he could have won, yes. But I just think that 3-2, 3-3, whatever, I think he could have done that. So then you give Tomac a 2-4, 2-3-4, whatever it was. Like they're still sitting on 12 points there, 12 or 13 points with those scores. So then you need Deegan if Australia is going to put a 19 on the board to at least go top 7.
Yeah,
I don't
fourth,
know,
like I said.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying is like, does he beat the Wolf by 5 positions, 4 positions? Like, I don't know. I don't think so. I think he does beat the Wolf, but I just don't think that the path to USA winning this is as clear as people saying like, well, they got second with this team, so they obviously would have won with the other one.
No, it's not clear at all, and it definitely isn't a certainty that they would have won, but it would have been a better race. It would have been closer, and it probably would have made the nations a little more memorable because it wouldn't have been so predictable.
Yeah, no, I mean, it would have been a lot closer for the USA, and it would have, I mean, we're maybe going to get this in the next couple of years anyway. I feel like Belgium just slots right in here as well. So I feel like we're going to have a fantastic nations the next 3 or 4 years with 3 kind of superpower nations all hitting at the same time. And maybe you have a different opinion of that, but I feel like even if when Deegan moves up to a 450, he goes with Chase and we, have another Kitchen or someone like that end up going, Team USA obviously stands a chance at winning, and then you throw Belgium and what Australia is bringing to the table. Like, I think Nations is going to be fantastic for the next 3 or 4 years. I am not as doom and gloom about Australia winning this thing or going on some crazy run, but I do still think that they are the number 1 nation. Like, it's pretty clear. Even when Webster goes down twice, he still is able to get back to 13th. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, and you've got to remember, before Jed Beaton broke his femur, he was most likely going to be the MX2 rider, and I think that would have worked out the same, like a star 250. He's more than capable, probably, well, certainly more internationally acclaimed than Webster. And then I was thinking this morning, okay, say Hunter or Jet did get injured and miss this race. Would a team of Jet, Webster, and Beaton really be that out of the running? I think they could still win with that team, or likewise Beaton, Webster, Hunter. Yes, they wouldn't be the favourites, but I think there was a lot of talk on Sunday about, well, if the Lawrences aren't there, Australia are done. But if you can still have one of them and put an on-form Beaton, as he was this year, in their place, I could still see them being a podium team or even, having a shot at a win in the right circumstances. So I don't think that Australia is hinging on the Lawrences as much as maybe some people think or act. I don't know.
No, you're 100% right, because, I mean, look, you have to look at... I always go to this MX2 open race as if you're going to have an open rider that's not... Like, if you sub Hunter Lawrence out for Jed Beaton or Kyle Webster or something like that, I'm sorry, but Jed Beaton or Kyle Webster, I think, are beating Jan Pencer in that race. I like Jan, but I think that they're probably going to do a third or a fourth or something. Like, they're that talented of dudes. Jed Beaton's, proved it on the world stage, now has Webster. So I'm with you. I think that it's ridiculous to just say the Lawrence brother not being there means Australia doesn't immediately factor in. They have talented riders. And here's another thing. I was going to maybe make this a topic, but we can quickly go over this. I feel like Cade Manier is like 2 or 3 years away from being the guaranteed MX2 slot on this team, depending on how well the start of his career goes. We've already seen what he can do on an amateur level. So Australia might have an insane 1-2-3 punch in a couple years of an established 250 guy that's battling for race wins here in the U.S. along with the Lawrence brothers. And then, if you lose a Lawrence brother, you just sub in Webster again. They're still just that good. I don't know. Like they're they're looking strong.
I just hope that we get a different winner at points over the next decade. Because if we are in the middle now of a Team USA type run, then I think it's going to get very tiring for everyone. So, and not because of Australia, just in general, the same way that it was a little bit subdued going to the nations each year, knowing, all being well, that USA would win. I think we're at that point now with Australia, and parity is obviously preferred in every single circumstance.
Yeah. All right, quick mini topic before I read a sponsor. Three nations outdid what I thought they would do. France, Slovenia, Sweden. Which nation do you think outdid it the most? Like, who did better by far than where they should have finished?
Oh, Sweden. Easily Sweden. I think I said on this podcast that Slovenia could get top 5 or even podium in the right circumstances. And what was the other country you said?
France and Slovenia.
Yeah, France was by a position or two, so whatever. I never would have bet money that Sweden would have got top 8. Maybe a 10th in the right circumstance, but top 8? Top 7 even? No, absolutely not. It has to be Sweden.
But I mean, well, I get that Slovenia has Geyser and that carries a team. Panzer obviously did the job, but would you not look at Sweden as like a slightly subdued version of Slovenia, where that Albin Gerhardsson in the MX2 class was never going to do anything fantastic, but like Oslin and Gifting are talented enough riders. They should, on their best days, both finish inside of the top 10 quite easily, right? So
no, Uslin's been off the map for a long time now.
But I'm saying on their best days.
Well, what are you saying by top 10 in their respective classes or in their motos or
no respective classes? Sorry.
Well, top 10 in the class isn't really that much to shout about, to be honest.
But then it carries you to top 10 overall for the nation, because if you go 7, 8 in your class, like that puts you up against a lot of the other guys that are doing the same thing.
No, not necessarily, because 7, 8 in your class means nothing when it's scored. It's not scored separately. Like even I think Conrad Muse was 7th in Open. He was 10th, but still top 10. Kulas was 8th and Estonia were buried. I never in a million years would have thought Sweden would be there. And of course, they were helped by Germany and Netherlands being out of action. But Gifting is unpredictable on his best day. Uslin's kind of anonymous. Gerhardsson is even more anonymous. So for them to put it together to go 7th is... there's no way that's in the same category as France or Slovenia, because Slovenia was 7th last year and their team was without doubt better this time around, because I think last year Panzer went 15, 16 in his motos, and there was absolutely no doubt in my mind that he was going to be much better than that this time around and make up for the deficit of Tim Geyser probably not going 1-1.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, yes, I do think Sweden is the pick here, but yeah, in the past, they've also been in the same position. They've been top 10 before with Bengtsson and Norin and guys like that.
And Russia won the nations once, but that doesn't mean that if they get third now, we're going to go. But it's done it before.
I'm talking 7 years ago. I'm not talking 1972.
Hold on. I'm going to find the nations you're talking about, and we're going to see where Sweden were. You're talking about 2014 with Bengtsson. With Bengtsson in 2014, they were 11th. With 92 points. Norin, Bengtsson, and Bengtsson.
Bengtsson.
Ken and Philip.
All right, cool.
92 points got them 11th that year, I said. So what was their point total for 7th this year, I asked? 84.
80-something? Yeah, 84.
Yeah, so actually, they were actually quite lucky to get 7th, even with the total they amassed.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot of nations all over the place. And
again, Germany and Netherlands being buried kind of changed the outlook from the top 5 down.
Well, this does bring me into my third topic. Before we do that, I want to tell you guys about Racetech. Racetech Suspension is your go-to source for suspension and engine performance. Obviously, their gold valve kits are the standard when it comes to getting your suspension reworked. But get your oil change, guys. Head over to racetech.com. Check out all the components and different parts that they offer over there. Racetech's service centers are all over the U.S. and in Europe, so you can get your suspension service pretty much anywhere that you ride. And we thank them again for backing the show. Here's my third topic, Big Lou. I did a tweet about this, and I don't know where you stand on this. Maybe you think it's the stupidest thing ever, but I don't like that Koldenhoff getting hurt for the Netherlands basically is just like, yeah, why is the Netherlands even here then? because it immediately takes any chance of them having any result whatsoever off the board, because the way that they run the nations is if you do not have 3 bikes start, you finish behind everybody else that does. And so my opinion of it was, okay, Koldenhoff didn't start the race. He wanted to, but he didn't. Just give him a 41, give him the first number that's outside of the guys that did start the race. You give him 2 41s and drop one of them, and, the Netherlands still finishes 12th. And if Vlaanderen had finished the last moto, I think they would have finished like 6th. So I don't know. Like, to me, that sucks. Like, I think that needs a bit of a looking at, or a rule change or something like that, where it just allows, this nation flew all the way over here, and just because of one stupid crash on Saturday, everything about their chances are ruined. Like, they still made the motos, they qualified, and they have some of the best riders in the world, but then they finished 19th. I don't know. That looks stupid to me.
Yes. I don't fully understand why we don't do that, to be honest. I guess it is just because they didn't start, so like you're trying to be fair to the teams that are actually fielding riders. But yes, I don't fully understand why we don't just give them a 40. I don't even know who you'd ask. The FIM, I guess. But then again, it wouldn't make that big a difference. I mean, well, I'm sure we can figure this out. Give the Netherlands a 40, even with Vlaanderen.
They would have been 12th.
100 points, yep. It took me much longer to figure that out than I needed to. And that's even with a DNF. So then are the nations that they beat going to complain and say, well, we actually put riders on track. Why did they beat us? You can see both sides of the coin.
Well, why I don't like it is because it almost kind of promotes, okay, Koldenhoff couldn't race because of what? He had morphine in the hospital or something on Saturday. But it almost promotes someone that is definitely injured enough to probably not be good enough to go on the track. Hey, go start and try, or go start and roll a lap, which I don't know, is kind of stupid. But that's the only way that
plan. I was under the impression that he was going to try and get like a 27th, because he would be able to do that rolling around. And everyone I spoke to before the medical fail said, no, he's in bad shape. He's literally going to start and pull off.
But that's what my problem with it is it promotes that you're going to send someone that's probably too injured to race onto the track. And yes, he didn't pass the medical examination, but it wasn't because he wasn't fit. It was simply because he took morphine on Saturday. Like, if he hadn't and just showed up Sunday, they would have let him on the track, I assume. So that, I don't know. To me, that rule just needs fixing, where they're not going to allow alternates in after qualifying. That was another thing people said, is if a nation has an alternate ready to go, obviously people are talking about Hurlings with the Netherlands, but just any alternate of any kind, let them go Sunday. I don't think that that's necessary. I just think that you got to give them a chance still to factor in the results of any kind. Like, they're going to have 58, 59, and 60 next year. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, but, the people talking about alternates, that would be lovely, but a large majority, or all of these nations, are struggling to spend the money to get a trio of riders there. There's no way that anyone can afford to get a 4th rider there just in case. So that's never going to happen, although it is lovely in a perfect world. And to be honest, who cares what numbers they are next year? And to be honest with you, for the Netherlands, a 12th or a 19th, who cares? Like, they don't care. It doesn't make a difference to them. Realistically, this goes along with Steve's Team USA discussion of 2nd or 3rd, does it really matter? I think that matters, but for the Netherlands, 8th or 19th, I don't think anyone cares. It's not like there's anything in it for them.
Okay, no, not for those positions, but then I just go back to the 2018 nations when Vlaanderen took a rock to the eye and went DNF, DNS, right? And I think he got a 38 or something, was the score that they gave him from the first moto. But then the Netherlands still got on the podium that day. And, the scores were ridiculously high at that particular nations, but they still got on the podium because they went 1-1, 1-2, 40 or whatever. So that's what I just mean is, I think it sucks that you just don't even give them that chance. Were they going to get on the podium with De Wolf and Vlaanderen? No. But De Wolf won his class. He was a top MX2 guy. That is a nation, in my opinion, that deserves to be in consideration for a top 5 finish, but they don't even get the chance because someone doesn't start. Again, I just think that needs a looking at. When I put it on Twitter, it was mixed. Like 50% thought that's a dumb rule. 50% thought, no, you need to reward nations that start. And I get that, because nations that start with 3 riders, I guess, played the game better and kept their riders healthy. But also Colton Hoff's crash was like totally out of his control. It was because a flagger couldn't get on the track fast enough to get him out of the way of a down back marker, which is a whole different other problem that we have to talk about, where these guys that probably have no business being on the track on Saturday are getting lapped 4 times or crashing and taking a main competitor out. Maybe that should be a topic, but I don't know, rubbed me the wrong way that they ended up 19th.
Well, Kellen, on behalf of the Netherlands, let me tell you that you're the only one who cares, and they're fine with it.
Okay, great, fantastic.
But like, no, seriously, who cares? This is dumb.
Okay.
And also, the Vlandering thing works because, yeah, what an incredible story. They got on a podium when their rider got hurt on race day. If they were stood on the podium when Koldenhoff didn't even take part, I think it would rub everyone even more the wrong way and be a little bit like, this is a bit weird, like, because that affects and upsets the fabric of the nations, you know?
I guess. All right. I just wanted to hear your thoughts on it because it was like one of my takeaways, I guess, from the nations.
Well,
but
there's a lot more positivity to focus on, Kellen, rather than that very negative
well,
attitude.
we spent 10 minutes on this show talking about how Iron Man probably shouldn't host the race again.
Yeah,
so.
probably shouldn't. It's not negative if it's true.
Let me tell you guys about Partzilla. Partzilla.com is the premier OEM parts sailor and distributor. They sell parts for several different motorcycle brands and snowmobiles, PWCs, all across the board. A big thanks again to them for supporting the show. No Partzilla.com PRMX riders to talk about this weekend, but I'm sure there's going to be news coming in the next 2 or 3 weeks about the athletes that they are potentially going to sign moving into 2026. So we'll be sure to give a PRMX team update when that happens, but we did not get a chance to see any of our friendly faithful this past weekend.
I have a PRMX team update.
Oh.
I asked Guillaume. He said he turned the offer down.
Oh. Something
really
bigger?
Wants that factory Kawasaki seat.
Yeah.
He stood in gear on Sunday morning after warm-up asking me about the factory Kawasaki seat and what they've said to me this weekend. With just his only focus in life is to be Chase's teammate. And then it's too much. And then my other PRMX update, my PRMX question is, I'm very surprised no nation got in touch and asked them to bring their truck to be the base for Denmark or Norway, or, you know, like Mun Racing was there. They were Denmark's base. A couple of like obscure, you know, teams that like Rock River were there, obviously Gio, but they had Gifting and Sweden. Like, I'm surprised PRMX wasn't involved in a party in that sense.
And Mun Racing wasn't there for any of the not like A-Rod. Yeah, A-Rod? Would A-Rod be under the Mun tent? Like,
is A-Rod on Mun?
No, but I'm just saying, like, just an established American connection, and he's on a KTM.
Oh, I don't know. No one paid that much attention.
Anyway, I don't know how much money that would cost, but yeah, I guess $50K to get a semi there.
Yeah, but then no, $50K really?
I don't know. I think the team would want something like that to have to pay to get their rig and the whole setup done and labor for the weekend for guys that are there. Maybe less. I don't know. Whatever, 20K, 30K, but still a decent chunk of change.
Yeah, but other teams do it. So nations are obviously chipping in to some degree.
Yeah. All right. Second half of the show, what do you got?
Well, first of all, an observation from the first half. I don't know if you're high or had some energy drinks, but fuck me, there is some intensity in your voice.
Oh, well, I'm just happy to be here with my dear friend Big Lou.
It's all very quick with Kellen today. It's fast, it's almost aggressive, attacking. It's not the usual mellow discussion. It's very.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
It's aggressive.
I'll lower the volume.
It's all fast. Not a critique, just an observation.
Sounds like a critique, to be honest.
Yeah, it's also me just stalling while I figure out what I want to talk about. I want to talk about GB, but you're not going to know much, so I don't really know how to talk about this.
I mean, I don't know much about how their plans and everything got there, but I do think that my personal opinion is they did well below what they should have probably done this weekend. Gilbert was good, but, you know, funniest thing I saw this weekend, a social comment, and I wish I remember where I saw it, was someone saying they need to find a way to, like, pack up the dirt from Desert Martin or something and just put it excuse me.
Oh, wow. See, aggressive, intense. That's just a lot, this show. Where is the normal Kellen gone?
A bug just flew in my mouth.
They need to put it's just all a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's very different. I don't like
they need to put the dirt from these locations in the UK on Muse's wheels before the gate drops in the USA, so he's got more home soil feel underneath his wheels.
Realistically, I don't think they underperformed. I think it was always going to be touch and go, even making the A final directly. And sadly, that's where the country's going. I think that although this was, and now we just can't even see Kellen because he's blinded by the sun. It's just a lot. I think where this is going is GB will effectively be what Ireland was for so many years. A final maybe in the perfect world, but can quite easily not make it, and blah, blah, blah. And it all comes because this is the first time from my memory that GB has sent a couple of riders who don't race in international competition, either SMX or MXGP. And the problem with that is, okay, first of all, Max is focusing on WSX, plus his bike was expensive, and Ben's Beta is too expensive as well, for whatever reason. No one knows. So, yes, in an ideal world, they would be there and they would push for scores much higher. But the problem is there are no British riders racing internationally beyond the current crop. And it's the most interesting case study of how can a nation once prominent fall so low. Where did the talent, not a thumbs up situation, despite what the camera is telling me. And how do you fix it? And I'm working on a big old story now, this off-season. A bit of a case study on British motocross and where's it going, how's it got here. But I think that the nation is in for a tough old slog, because even the talent that is heralded as coming up because they're doing well in the British Championship, which is a fairly weak field, they've already kind of missed the boat because they're too old and they're the Wolf's age and they're whatever else. And these riders are already GP winners, world champions. And the British riders, everyone's like, well, give them a chance. Here they come. And it's like, well, no, that boat has passed them by. Look at what Tommy Searle was doing at the same age as some of the riders he's now racing against in MX2. So I think that it's going to take a 10-year shift of turning this thing around to get Britain back into the top 10 even. And it's just a bit curious because I don't know if we've had a real case study of a nation falling like this. I mean, can you think of another country that once was really good and has just fallen? Can't think of one.
Not to this level, no. I mean, Belgium did drop down a little bit, but
for the most part, the nations kind of just hover where they hover, with a bit of peak and a bit of valley. But for the most part, they are what they are. Like Germany, for the most part, is a top 5 team that can do a lot better or can do a little bit worse, but they're never going to be 16th for no reason. So yeah, curious.
I guess if you want to go a little further back for a minute there, Spain had like some real contenders on their program, and then until Prado was coming up, it wasn't like they were crushing it. But this is a big drop for the UK. And I was thinking about it of like, okay, so what's the landscape like with the youth in Great Britain racing growing up? And I know that there's always going to be a little bit of the tracks just shut down and all the problems going on with insurance, and I'm sure that isn't exactly awesome in the UK, but it doesn't seem like it's near as bad as it is in Belgium, right? Belgium is in turmoil right now with like almost all their tracks getting shut down.
I don't think tracks really have anything to do with it. I think it's more just being in their bubble.
That's the point I wanted to make about it, is that it's like somehow, some way, Belgium is still producing good talent. I mean, I think there's a couple kids in like the 85 class that are even coming through for Belgium, right? So, but there is one kid from the UK, right? That's coming up.
Harry Dale.
Harry Dale, yeah. So I don't know. Maybe it's just I think the real problem is that there's kids that are probably good in the UK that aren't translating that to the world scale anymore. Like everyone thought that Joel Rizzi would be something like that, and he turned out to not be that way, and it just seems like that's kind of the rotating scale with UK riders right now, is that the transition from being a superstar in the British amateurs to being a world-class talent isn't happening. That's maybe where the biggest problem is. I don't know what the problem in there would be, but that's where I see it coming from mostly.
No, the problem is, well, first of all, it's obviously expensive to go and do EMX or whatever. That makes sense. Second of all, everyone is blinded by should we go and spend money to do EMX? Well, I don't really want to get 31st. Let's just go here and I'll get second. Like, everyone's chasing a trophy almost. Some people need to just sack up. And even, like, there's a lot of, like, the EMX calendar is so expensive and long. Well, you don't actually have to do the full season. Just pick 4 rounds. do the closest ones. No one said anything about a full season. Ultimately, your skills and your profile will grow purely from 1 or 2 starts. No one said anything about the full championship. So it's almost like the trip from UK to Europe has been talked up so much as being this massive cost and shift and change in dynamic that everyone's a bit fearful of it. Whereas actually, I think if you just kind of dip your toe in and give it a go, you find out it's not as hard as it maybe seems. There's also a lack of British teams now. Obviously, like Ben got across to Europe thanks to Hitachi, and Sterry got across to Europe thanks to STR, and even further back, Dixon and Cass Honda and all of these teams, that helped the transition. Riders weren't so alone. So I think that's a bit of it as well. But then that's another question about the health of British motocross. Why aren't there teams now? For the longest time, in the early 2000s, the MXGP paddock was full of British teams, from RWJ to Molson to Roger McGee's team, from Honda to Kawasaki to KTM to Cass Honda to Multitech Honda to Swift Suzuki. There were all of these teams from Britain, and now even the British teams are just out on it. And I understand, again, it's a cost thing, but why? Where was that money coming from in the 2000s? That, I think, is a question that I'm trying to dig into, because I think that is fundamentally where the issue lies. I think the British Championship has taken a good step. Obviously, I've got to catch up with a lot of British people this weekend. It's under new management this year, and everyone seems to be very encouraged by it. Next year, there's going to probably be some new talent in there, which will make it even more exciting and more worth tuning into. So maybe that helps the profile. That lifts the profile. That lifts the ambition. That lifts the efforts being put in to get people elsewhere. I don't know. But ultimately, it's going to be a tough old slog. There's a low-key bit of hype in my... Don't know if you know this. I'm good friends with Ben Watson and Max Anstey. Don't know if that's come across. We're building a hype for 2027 because we're thinking a team of Anstey, Watson, and either Muse or Sterry in the sand can podium. So our thinking is that 2027 is Britain's last great hope for the next 2 decades. So we're already discussing Assen 2027. But apart from that, it's in the shitter. And I don't know why. And I'd like to do a little something to figure it out, to be honest. That's what I was discussing with Max yesterday. Ways that me and Max together could maybe combine to produce some sort of British motocross initiative or whatever else. I don't know. Because, yeah, me and Max would like to get a little bit closer to our roots, but we don't really know what we could do.
Do you think that you'll find in doing this that if it wasn't for Max, Ben, Dean, Tommy, like 5 guys in the last decade or so that have really kind of carried the flag for Great Britain, especially at Nations, but just in general, that this problem actually goes back quite a bit further, but those guys broke the mold of what was happening with that UK transition period and everything?
Well, Ben Watson certainly broke the mold with his incredibleness, as did Max. No, I think because those riders were good enough to demand European access and coverage. I don't think that the current crop is, at this point, good enough. So they need to... Ben Watson and Adam Sterry went into EMX expecting to succeed because they were on that level. The current British crop need to go into EMX expecting to learn because they're not at that level yet. And I think that's where there's a bit of a disconnect as your camera disconnects and your sound becomes really loud for some reason. A waterfall going on. Or a car, potentially. We don't really know. But I think the difference in thinking of going to EMX to learn rather than to win is where the hold-up is. Because who wants to spend their money to go and finish 32nd? No one, realistically. If you give me 2 options right now, I'm going to give the option where I succeed because it's more fun. But this is ultimately professional sport, and that's where you need to kind of sack up and have someone in your corner that's pushing you to take your lumps.
Let me tell the fine people at home about Namura. Namura obviously makes fantastic engine components, Soon cylinders, all kinds of fun kits that you guys can get for your motorcycle. Tons of different options available at Namura.com for you guys to get an entire new top end built for your bike, no matter what it is. And they proudly present the LVK More Than Moto podcast every single week. So thanks to Namura. All right, I think we have one more topic to go.
Well, you better explain the cut, Kellen, because people are going to be wondering about
I just turned my laptop about 20 degrees so I wasn't staring into the sun, and then it just turned everything off. So fantastic.
I'd like to go back to my earlier point about the intensity, the aggression, the general vibe of this show being a little bit haphazard and how upsetting it is for me sitting on this end of the call.
I'm sorry.
And also, I'd just like to point out that Kellen never should have stopped recording because we kept it going and I was alone for a little bit, but I just riffed and I think that we should have just kept it going. But never mind. I don't know. What else do you want to talk about? This is kind of the problem with the Nations, is that when you leave, it doesn't really lead anywhere. So actually, I said it a million times, the pre-race hype is more valuable than the post-race because now it's more of a case of a race report because there's no like, how is so-and-so going to rebound? What does this mean for next weekend? Oh, Hunter looked good. Does this mean that Hunter is now a contender? You know, it's all kind of irrelevant.
I got one that we could do.
Nowhere. Okay,
that was the last race of Eli Tomac on a Yamaha. Allegedly, it sounds like the last race maybe of Glenn Coldenhoff's career. A lot of different stuff. So, what? Oh, no. Sorry. Okay. So we got to cut that again. Okay. So that was the last race of Eli Tomac's career on a Yamaha, maybe the last race of Glenn Coldenhoff's career. A lot of change coming for some of the guys that we just saw this past weekend. So what did you take of Eli's last performance on a Yamaha and how weird it's about to be in about a week to see him on a KTM?
I mean, I don't really read into the Eli Yamaha thing too much because was the Eli Yamaha era that defining? You know, it was only 4 years. And also, the Nations was just it kind of perfectly encapsulated Eli. Some weirdness, some amazingness, and some in-between stuff. Kind of got the full Eli experience across his final race with Yamaha.
Well, I think the Yamaha period for Eli Tomac is going to be remembered quite fondly by a lot of people because it was maybe when the puzzle pieces all came together until he tore his Achilles. Like, he was on his way to winning back-to-back Supercross titles almost. He won a 2022 outdoor title on this bike. He won the Motocross of Nations for the first time in his career on this bike. I mean, he did a lot of winning. So I think it's kind of a weird end because it just goes out without like much oomph. Like when his Cowie career ended, it was fanfare and big emotional thing, and he's leaving Crans, and I mean his mechanic is just going to a different team now, so like it's kind of a lot that isn't really being noticed.
Yeah, I think that they could have done a better job. I think they should have announced before the Nations, seeing as he's out of contract, they should have announced this will be his final race. I think that would have been quite nice, you know, it would have gotten a bit of attention going. I'm excited to see him on a KTM. I really am. I think it's going to look wildly different, which will be quite exciting. From what I hear, everyone within KTM is very happy with how motivated Eli is for this new beginning, and everyone's very encouraged by the positivity and the way that everyone involved is going to learn from the chase lessons and move forward and apply them to Eli, who really wants to make this work. So I think everyone involved is quite pumped about this, which is equally kind of rubbed off on me a little bit. I suddenly feel a little bit more peppy about the Eli move. He rides for the first time next week, so I think that the Eli announcement will probably come the following week, because I'd imagine they're going to get some photos on Thursday or Friday, if that's when he's riding. So yeah, we'll get that in a little bit. Coldenhoff's sad. I really wish that I had more on Coldenhoff. One of my only missions of the weekend was to find out if Coldenhoff is going to race next year. And to be honest, as it sits right now, I think that he won't be unless he takes some sort of like Dutch championship ride with the occasional GP, fill-in ride in America, whatever else. I don't know. I think that as far as full-time racing, I think Coldenhoff might be done. And if that's the case, what a sad way to go out with less fanfare than he deserves, because ultimately his career's been weird. For sure it's been weird, but it's also been very successful with a lot of highs. He's one of the most liked people in the sport. A lot of questions too. You could do a whole hour on like, why was he never a world championship contender but so good on certain weekends, and did he need a little bit more stability? Should he have gone to Yamaha? That I'd be very interested to ask him his opinion of that, because the Yamaha chapter, similar to Eli's career as a whole, included some weirdly high highs and weirdly low lows. And if that's how he's going out, A, he doesn't deserve to go out with a DNS, but B, he deserved a bit more attention for it. I mean, you know, we've seen MXGP do plaques and banners and all of that for a rider ending their career, and ultimately, Coldenhoff didn't even get an interview reflecting on it.
It is sad if that's the end. I don't want to believe it is. I feel like something's going to work out. I mean, you kind of briefly mentioned that it's just not working out with his negotiations with maybe riding for HEP in the Nationals, but like, is he asking too much money, you think, to just race 11 rounds, or what's the deal?
I hear it's a mix of there's no money unless you want to race Supercross as well, or no one wants to do an outdoor-only deal, and obviously he doesn't want to do Supercross. And now there's a wave of other MXGP riders, Guadagnini, Geertz, whoever else, who are willing to do it for a lot less money. Then also in MXGP, Fantic was an option, but as we've discussed, the idea of going to Fantic isn't quite as lucrative as anyone would like to think now. And Ducati kind of have messed him around a little bit because they were going after Hurlings and then they were going after Geyser and now they're going after Renault, and they've kind of dismissed Koldenhoff. But at the same time, he doesn't want to develop a bike at this point in his career, which is understandable. And equally, I would understand if Ducati said, we don't want a soon-to-be 35-year-old on this new project where we're kind of building, because there isn't much to build with there. So, yeah, sad. I'd like to get to the bottom of it. I don't know if you saw, but I commented on his Instagram reflecting on the weekend and said, are you racing in 2026? Because what better way to get our journalistic answers? And he replied and said, I'd like to know the same thing. So that's where we're at.
Okay, so let's go two sides of the pond real quick. First off, USA. Why is it not possible at all, in your opinion, if Cowie literally thinks they're going to put Josh Hill on the bike in Supercross?
They're not. Steve has confirmed via text, where he reached out to someone and was told that's crazy.
Okay, well, anybody on the bike in Supercross, would they not consider putting Glenn outdoors on that bike?
Because I think outdoors is clear to them. I think if it comes to it, Marchbanks moves up for outdoors. Supercross is a hang-up for Kawasaki. And I actually spoke to Kawasaki about this at the weekend. They said, for sure, they do not plan on going racing with just Chase at any moment. For sure. Concrete. I was very adamant because I was like, why not? And they were like, no. 2, they don't want an old guy. They want a young guy who they can build over time. And I mentioned, like, it would be nice to have a pro circuit guy, because now for the longest time, Adam aside, there's not really been a path from pro circuit to factory Kawasaki. So it would be nice to redevelop that. And they agreed. And then I said Barsha, because he still hasn't signed his Ducati deal. I would take Barsha. And they again said, ideally we'd like someone younger. You know what you're getting with the older guys. Which, to be honest, I can't think of a single rider who fits that criteria when you consider no pro circuit rider wants to move up for Supercross. So I don't know. Maybe...
I did hear like a brief smattering, and I don't think it happens at all, but because Joe's deal isn't signed yet, they would consider throwing a heap of money at him.
Yeah, people still say that, but I said this to someone yesterday. If there was any truth to that, I believe at this point we would have heard some fairly good whispers or rumors, or, like...
But it's who's in Joe's corner enough to say that?
No, but from the Kawasaki side, like, we all talk to Kawasaki people. Chase even, you would have thought... Like, the last time I spoke to... Actually, I can't say any of that. Never mind.
Another private conversation that you can bring to the topic. Okay, so then let's go
back
to
I just realised I could have said the conversation, but I realised I was going to say when I had it, which is far out in the wilderness and wouldn't be allowed.
Back to Glenn, though, real quick. On the Europe side, as you said, there's some closed doors a little bit, but I want to quickly ask you about KTM again. They haven't made a decision yet on a couple of their guys in-house moving up or whatever.
All the decisions are made. What do you want to know?
Okay, why is there not a second 450?
What? Where?
Under the factory tent.
There was never the plan to be. They never really looked to replace Hurlings. I mean, actually, potentially Adamo is going to go up. I meant to get clarification on that. The rumor is Adamo will go up, but they never specifically tried to sign a guy to replace Hurlings, quote unquote. And De Wolf's plan will be announced this week. The fact that I'm not just telling you the plan should tell you what he's going to do.
And he stays on a Husky 450?
He stays on a Husky.
Okay.
I didn't say 450. And Decali will be Koonin and Koonin. Factory will be Lagenfelder and Adamo. And Husky will be Evertson, De Wolf. Nice. All nice and neat. 2 and 2, like Noah's Ark.
Okay, so there's only going to be one, well, unless Adamo moves up, one factory 450 KTM next year.
Yeah, but technically, if Adamo stays down, it's the same number and setup as this year. 2 450s across the group.
How? What? If Adamo stays down?
Yeah, because this year they had Hurlings and Koonin, and now
Yeah.
I've just fucking given it away.
Oh, I don't know. Okay.
I highly suspect
see.
DeWolf to be on a
Yes.
450,
Okay. Yeah,
and I
yeah.
highly suspect that DeWolf will be on a 450. So if you think about it, this year they had Hurlings and Koonin, and next year they would have DeWolf and Koonin. So still 2 450s across the group.
Okay, 2 450s across the group. Yeah, then I don't know what Glenn would do. There's no
Someone,
doors.
I don't know if I said this on a podcast. I definitely said it somewhere. Someone suggested to me that, and it's very smart, and I really think this should happen. Husky say to Malcolm, don't bother with outdoors. Like, you don't want to do it. Forget it. And they bring Glenn in for outdoors, but then have Glenn as an outdoor test rider across MXGP in America for the first half of the year. That, to me, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what Harp was supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
And then it flipped, obviously, ended up racing because of some injuries. But yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I don't know why more teams don't even consider that as an idea of having a more kind of permanent intermittent test rider, because it seems like there's not enough sharing going on, especially within the KTM group at the moment. So why not?
No, yeah, I think that would make some sense. But apart from that, apart from pie in the sky ideas like that, I can't really think of anything.
It just seems ridiculous. The guy that finished third in the MXGP World Championship last year is just no one can figure it out.
Yes, I mean, that doesn't reflect well on the series, but then he is 34. He has been around. So, like, I guess you can't really blame the MXGP paddock for this. And also, what open seats were there besides Ducati and Fantic? Potentially he could go back to Yamaha and take the Renault seat if Renault leaves, but then Vlanderen would want that. Okay, maybe you could have figured it out with KTM, but I don't think so, because they never made an effort to replace Hurlings. Honda is set, Yamaha is set, Kawasaki is set. So yeah, there's like, realistically, there was just nowhere for him to go. So it's not, I'm not like so down on the MXGP paddock for it, but it just seems like a bad set of circumstances.
Well, that's what I mean, is I think there's a lot of guys in America, and I get America maybe has a little bit more seats at the moment, but a lot of guys in America that are pushing into their mid-30s quite far and just keep getting rides, probably deservedly so, but so does Glenn, even though he's in his mid-30s, and he seems to be a nice guy, likable. It sounds like he's decent at testing, right? So you kind of have like almost a total package of a guy that's going to come to all the GPs and get you a decent score and also develop your bike. I just don't get it.
Yeah, but I've just listed the reasons. There is no seat.
I know, I understand that, but I'm saying some manufacturer, honestly, Ducati not pulling the trigger on it is probably the stupidest thing, because they're just
but Glenn also doesn't want to do that.
Why?
I said earlier in the show, Kellen, he doesn't want to test a bike at this point in his career. He doesn't want to build a bike. He doesn't want to waste the time doing that. I think he would do it if it was his only option and the money was right, but ideally he doesn't want to do that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That Ducati's obviously pouring money into this project. They're going to pour money into the USA. So if you want someone that's going to help develop and test that bike, you have Seward doing it a little bit. You have Cairoli dragging his 40-year-old ass around doing it, but just have a guy that has already proven it this year still, that he's world championship material every week.
But they're going for Renault. So what do you want them to do? A four-man team?
No, but they should have went for Glenn over Renault, in my opinion.
That is something I could get on board with, but then they would just tell you that the age difference, and I guess you can't really argue with that because they're trying to peg a star for the future. I don't know. And if you want to go into the testing thing, then you're going to put poor Kevin Strybos out of a job.
Your interaction that you explained with Strybos on the weekend was confusing to me until I realized that he was just BSing you.
Yeah, they didn't realize that at all.
No, I didn't get it either.
If it was a serious encounter, why would I tell that story on the podcast? It doesn't look very good on me.
Because you thought it was funny that he just told you off?
No, this is the best thing about GPs, right? I had breakfast with someone on Thursday morning. I was already sat in a hotel breakfast. They came down. It was planned. And I said something to them, and they just looked at me and went, I forgot what a fucking idiot you are. And I love that. That's like my way of communicating. I love fucking calling people fucking idiots and all of this sort of stuff. It's amazing. I was like, oh, thank you. Yeah, good.
All right. Well, fantastic. Do we have any more to debrief, or are we good?
No, I want you to apologise to the listeners.
I would like to apologize to listeners for slightly moving my laptop.
No, and just the aggression, Kellen. It wasn't. I feel very, as one of the talents on this podcast, I don't feel like this was a productive working environment. I felt very rushed. I didn't feel like I could think, and it wasn't. It was very uncomfortable for me, and I will be talking to HR.
All right. Well, I apologize that I caught you on the back of your feet for some reason when we're simply just discussing motocross. But such is life. Life goes on.
Yeah. Well, are we doing a show next week?
We can.
Are you still going to be weird?
Yeah, I'll be on the road somewhere.
Okay, I'll have a think about whether I want to endure this again.
We got to talk about World Supercross. We got to talk about all the team switches that are going to happen next week, Lou. People are demanding answers.
Ideally, I would like to do a show every week of the off season, within reason. Obviously, there's going to be one or two, I guess, where like we're sick or something happens. But I think we should keep this ball rolling because why not? There is plenty of things to talk about. There's plenty to do. We can rehash for nations once you're in a little bit more of sound mind.
This guy.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we should. The people, they want coverage. They want more.
There is a lot to do. There's a lot to fucking do. Honestly, the one thing that pissed me off on the weekend, I'm sorry to everyone who this is going to insult, really pissed me off when the people who told me I'm doing a good job.
You're doing a good job.
Because I don't see that angers me because I don't think I am. And I don't like and I don't like that. And everyone has said it to me.
One thing that did bum me out on the weekend a little bit.
What was that?
I'm going to throw the media under the bus a little bit.
Oh boy.
Yeah, the guys that were filming, a lot of them that were filming this weekend, learn the athletes, please. I get that
you mean like the MXGP TV coverage or
No. I'm talking about the filmers, the media guys that film. Okay. Like that, do the raw videos and stuff like that, which Sean did an excellent job on Vital. But
I don't think we had a raw video.
I thought you guys did first laps.
But
or start practice or something like that.
But
okay, well, whatever. Sean does a good job anyway because he actually knows the riders. But I watched a couple raw videos and a couple channels that cover the series in the U.S. and it's quite obvious they have no idea anybody else but people that ride in the USA.
What you mean the video just included American athletes?
Pretty much.
Okay,
there goes Roxon, and then we'll follow him around. But like Lucas Coonan coming from dead last in the quali race to sixth, I don't think I saw anybody covering that.
Honestly, I've hinted at this, not hinted at it, I've said it on a few podcasts lately. My new thing, I said this on the last LVK, my new thing is I want to do a global moto podcast where you just fucking do everything. But I don't know how it would work. But I do think there's a space for it. Let's bring the world together. Because as I said, and Weege disagreed with me, but as I said, the Nations is the best example of how good the sport can be when we are all united as one. And it's never going to happen as a series, although I did speak to someone powerful and gave them that speech. And they said, don't be pessimistic, Lewis. Never say never. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I thought that's a very interesting take on something that surely is never going to happen, ? But yeah. But if we can't do it on track, let's do it off track.
A rising tide raises all ships, as they say. So why not?
Had a great talk. Spoke to all of the powers that be at the weekend. Had a great talk with Dan. A great talk with Prater. A great talk with Davey. Really just, equal opportunist. Some people are mad at me. Some people were happy to see me. And that sums up my weekend.
Well, I'm happy to see you, as are the fans here on PulpMX. Happy to see you again because they just saw you on the review show as well. So you're getting around. Yeah,
it's surprising how many people in the pits think I work for PulpMX.
It might not be a bad thing. Hey. But anyway, appreciate everyone for watching and backing the show here, the Leatt LVK More Than Moto podcast, Nations recap, and yeah, we'll be back next week. I'll be at a different location, and we'll talk WSX, we'll talk Anderson's new deal, we'll talk any other new deals that are coming up, and yeah, I guess we'll see you guys in a week. Thanks for watching.